Here we go. Here's John in Texas who says there's scientific, historic, and testimonial evidence for God. Okay, let's just stick with the scientific, because I don't should give a crap about testimony, and the fact that historically people believe stuff and claimed it isn't really impressive. So welcome, John. What's the scientific evidence for God?
Bring it on, John.
Okay. Scientific. Well, it sounds
Are
like
you
don't
eating?
want to hear personal test. No, I'm kind of wrapping that up, but
so you are eating. So when I
He's
say
been
are
on
you
hold for a
eating,
minute.
and you
No,
say no,
he's
I'm
fine.
wrapping that
He's
up,
been
that
on
means
hold.
you're eating.
no,
You're
I'm
not
saying
starting
I'm
off
done
well.
eating.
Bring your gum to
wrapped it up.
class. How dare you?
Yeah,
No,
I don't
no,
find
I'm ready, I'm
testimonies. I don't find testimony impressive. I had my own testimony for a number of years. There's limits,
well,
but let's start with the scientific.
I would believe your testimony. Like I wouldn't reject your experiences.
Yeah, and you would be. That's the problem. Thank you, John. If you believe my testimony, you would be mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Right. So if I was to give you a testimony of my experience with God, would you reject it?
Probably.
I believe that whatever
Unless
you
had
tell me
evidence
is
for it.
your best explanation of what you think you experienced, but it isn't confirmation that a God exists.
I don't think it's.
Wow. Am I going to finish a sentence?
I don't think it's.
I guess not. Go ahead, Forrest.
Well, I was gonna if just to follow up with the exact same thing you said. If I were to give you my testimony of the pixies that live in my attic, would you believe me because I said it?
Well, I wouldn't. I would want to, see the evidence, and I'd be completely open to it. I wouldn't shut it down or rule it out, because there's just too much about the world and reality that we don't know about, and to rule things out that don't make sense to you personally, I don't think that's fair.
John,
So you
why
started
on
right,
earth?
and then
So you've already started by framing this entirely wrong. Me saying that your testimony isn't sufficient to warrant believing in God is not me ruling it or God out.
Okay, so let me. I guess my point is, if I was to tell you that I've encountered God and experienced Him, would you automatically shut me down? Is my question.
What does shut you down mean? If you tell me, don't say anything for 30 seconds.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I fucking know. If you were to tell me that you had an experience with God, I would ask you to tell me about it. What was the experience? How do you know that it's God? Those are the important things. And then either your oh my fucking God. Either your answers then would be sufficient to warrant belief and compelling. Wouldn't be. I don't know what you mean, but you called in about scientific, historic, and testimonial evidence. And I said at the outset, let's set aside the testimony because it's insufficient to justify anything. Let's set aside the history and just stick with the science, because I got a bunch of other callers here. And wouldn't scientific evidence of God be the most compelling that you could possibly get? So bring on, John, your scientific evidence that confirms that there is a God, because you'll be the first in the history of the world to demonstrate scientifically that a God exists.
Okay, so let me use that point, since there has been, I guess, no scientific evidence for God, but most people's experiences are personal testimony. So I'm not sure what you mean by personal testimony.
Just stick to science.
Valid.
Just tell us the science. We're gonna disagree, and it's gonna be the whole rest of the call. We really want to hear this science.
I've muted John, and I'm going to unmute you, John. Give us the existence of God, or I will go talk to another of the many people who are waiting, who aren't going to waste our time going over shit we said don't go over. What's the scientific evidence for God, John?
Are y'all open? Because it doesn't sound like you.
Just give us the science.
John, for the last time, John, when I stop talking, you should give us the scientific evidence for God or stop.
Okay. All right. So what about supernatural phenomenon? That's a scientific.
Goodbye.
That's valid.
Dude, come on.
Nope.
If there was such a thing as a supernatural phenomenon, it would now be natural. If something happens in this world, it isn't supernatural, right? It happened here. It's natural. And fun fact, all the things that you guys call supernatural, we can't test in a lab. Find me a paper, find me a peer-reviewed study showing ESP, showing angel, showing a near-death experience. They don't exist, because every time we try to test these things, we find totally normal, natural, predictable, really reasonable explanations for all of them. It's like you're not even trying. That's
they weren't trying. That's the thing. If you're going to call in, bring your A game. And if you're going to claim that there's scientific evidence for God, and we say, give us your scientific evidence for God, and you say, what about the supernatural? Well, I'm sorry, but you just demonstrated that you don't understand science at all, because science is rooted in methodological naturalism. And since there is currently no way to investigate or confirm anything that is purported to be supernatural, there is no confirmation of anything supernatural within science. There's no confirmation of anything supernatural anywhere. You would have to come up with some sort of discipline that allows you to reliably and consistently identify and verify those things that you claim are supernatural, and show that they are supernatural and how they interact with the natural world. So you can't just say, what about the supernatural, and then pretend like you've presented scientific evidence for God. It's beneath nonsense. It is at a troll level of a call. I'm not even going to think you're serious. I think we just cut you off before you could prank us.
Yep. I would have asked more questions, but honestly, he already said that he wouldn't rule out the pixies in my attic because he didn't want to discredit my beliefs. Like, yeah, you can do that. You can discredit people's beliefs if they're ridiculous. That's the whole point of thinking.